Hello and welcome to Stage Door Live, a brand new web programme for the community of artists here in Ireland. My name is Amy Kidd, I'm an actor and I'll be your host this evening. When the director Kevin Michael Reid came to me and he said that he thought he wanted to create a space where you could get all of the latest headlines and hot topics from the arts community in one place, I thought that it was a great idea. So every week I'll be giving you a little news roundup of arts related hot topics, and I'll be speaking with some guest speakers that live and work here in Ireland. We hope you enjoy the show. Tonight I'll be talking to theatre and film artist Shaun Dunne and Dead Centre's artistic director Bush Moukarzel about theatre on screen. I'll then be joined by the founder and director of Fit Up Theatre Festival, Geoff Gould, a festival dedicated to bringing theatre to rural Ireland, where delivery of theatre online could be virtually impossible. We'll discuss the festival's plans for the future. Lastly, I'll be talking with actor and director Monaghan about the filming and screening of live theatre and the challenges it brings for both actors and directors. I'm Amy Kidd, and this is Stage Door Live for the 6th of May 2020. Live, episode 4. Wow, it's really hard to believe that it's already been a month since we started, but hey, time is a strange mistress these days. Thank you so much to everyone who's followed us on social media, and thank you to everyone for liking and for sharing and just for helping us grow. We really do appreciate all of the support that we've had. So we've got a great show for you tonight, but first let's check in with the news. So the Taoiseach announced Ireland's plan for coming out of lockdown on Friday, and this plan includes 5 3-week stages beginning 18th of May, designed to gradually relax the current restrictions. Phase 5, which is set to begin on the 10th of August, includes the reopening of theatres and cinemas, where social distancing can be maintained. But it also states that this phase will see a return to work across all sectors. And under social distancing guidelines, venues would be looking at reopening with significantly diminished audience capacity. So a complete return to work for artists and arts workers would be difficult. Minister for Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht, Josepha Madigan, has stated that she will work closely with all stakeholders to determine the best way forward. In an interview on BBC Radio 2, prominent theatre producer Sir Cameron Mackintosh said, "For major producers both sides of the Atlantic, the truth is that until social distancing doesn't exist anymore, we can't even plan to reopen." Meanwhile, in an article for the Irish Times, Michael Dervin points out that Germany, who have half the confirmed COVID-19 cases per million of the population that Ireland has, and only a third of the deaths per million, is further down the road than we are in the cancellation of major festivals like Oktoberfest. Galway International Arts Festival, scheduled to take place in July, announced on Friday its official postponement and have said that they are planning on a special programme of events in autumn of this year. Subject to public health guidelines, it is still unclear whether other major festivals like Electric Picnic and Dublin Theatre Festival, scheduled for later in the year, will go ahead. We did have Willie White of Dublin Theatre Festival on to chat with us last week, and we finished our chat with both our fingers crossed. So we look forward to seeing what shape that will take, and we hope to be back in our venues sooner rather than later. While we won't be attending any major live gatherings anytime soon, the world of film and TV are trying to adapt to current restrictions. Last week, Piers Wenger, head of BBC Drama Commissioning, outlined some possibilities for moving forward with programme production. He said one option for resuming filming might be quarantining actors and crew in order to allow actors to interact in the same space, while shows like Strictly Come Dancing might remove their studio audience and put participants in long-term isolation with each other for the duration of filming. Such hopeful news cannot be said for popular reality show Love Island, which announced its cancellation on Monday. Also happening in Britain, the Casting Directors Guild Committee released a statement on Monday calling on the UK's television and film industry to safeguard the future of UK theatre and theatre makers. The committee went on to say, "The talent fostered in theatres throughout Great Britain and Ireland is envied around the world and is endlessly drawn on by screen media. We believe that television and film production companies must confront a stark reality, that without your help, the talent pool which we all rely on faces its greatest existential threat in a generation." In some non-pandemic related news, the Arts Council released a report on gender statistics for 2019 Arts Council Individual Awards. The report breaks down the distribution of roughly the €25 million awarded to 491 individual artists last year. Of the 1,674 applicants, 1,011 were female and 636 were male, and only 29% of applications were successful. The report states that overall male artists tended to seek and receive more money, but that the trend varied across art forms. The complete report can be found on the Arts Council's website. In international news, the Pulitzer Prize winners were announced this week by video stream. Limerick native journalist Malachy Brown was awarded the prize for international reporting for his work in the New York Times, exposing the predations of Vladimir Putin's regime. In the drama category, Michael R. Jackson's A Strange Loop took home the prize, while the American author Colson Whitehead's novel The Nickel Boys won in the fiction category, making him the fourth ever person to win that award twice. And finally, we would like to offer our congratulations to the team at the Abbey Theatre. All 4 parts of Dear Island are now available on the Abbey's YouTube channel. The full programme has reached over 100,000 views so far and will be available to view for the next 6 months. And that is all for the news this week. As you might have been able to tell, I was using a... This week we want to draw attention to theatre on the screen. If you're watching us for the first time, you'll notice that we do have lots of ways for you to interact with myself and with our guests. So you can post in our Facebook live chat, tweet at TheatreMaker.ie with #StageDoorLive, or leave us a comment on our YouTube channel. If you want to tell us how you're enjoying the show, or if you have any questions for us or for the guests, then we'd love to share what you have to say on the show. So our first guests this evening are Shaun Dunne and Bush Moukarzel. Shaun is a theatre and film artist and one of 50 writers selected for the Abbey Theatre's Dear Island. His piece, The Box Room, a meditation on work, was part of the second instalment. Bush is co-artistic director and performer with Dead Centre Theatre Company. Dead Centre, based between London and Dublin, and their most recent project, Shakespeare's Last Play, premiered in Berlin. Hamnet, a co-production with the Abbey Theatre, came back to the Samuel Beckett Theatre in 2018 after it ran at the Abbey in 2017. Hello, Shaun and Bush. Hello. Oh, I can't hear you. I wonder if that...
How's it?
Oh, no. Now I can hear you. Okay, cool. That's good. How are you both doing? Okay, so I'll go Shaun first and then Bush. How's lockdown going for you so far?
It's up and down. I think everybody is having a similar experience. I'm good today. Um, kind of, I think like a lot of people in terms of like work, just kind of waiting for the cancels and accepting them as they come, and just trying to kind of move on and stay positive as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah. And Bush, how are you doing? Unproducing? What? Oh, unraveling the. Mm, yeah, something you don't think about, I suppose. So I'm gonna try and lead this as kind of a more of a kind of debate about video and how it affects theatre in its different forms. So feel free to kind of answer back to each other across me almost, but I'll try and lead open the floor in a way. So, Sean, pre recorded live theatre like Dear Island, which you just did, it's suddenly become accessible to thousands of people all at once, way more than the amount of people that would fill one theatre space. So, what do you think about this increase in accessibility? And also, do you think it still is theatre?
No, I don't think it is theatre as such. I think for the moment, I think it's its own particular thing. It depends, I suppose. You have to have a conversation with each particular theatre artist about what theatre means to them. For me, theatre is about collaborating with a team over time, and it's about the live moment with the audience, and it's different every time. And recording something um, is a different offer altogether. And even if you're streaming it live and the audience are receiving it live, and you're kind of there with them in some way, experiencing it together for the first time, it's still a different engagement. And spiritually, it feels very different. So for me, it's a different beast, and yeah, it takes some consideration to kind of figure out what it is that you'd want to make in these various forms now moving forward if we can't be together anymore.
Mm. And Bush, what do you think? Kind of the same question. Yeah, play argue the other side.
The thing most people seem to rest on is community and connectiveness and basically bodies.
Mm,
Bodies which got us into this problem in the first place. It's the fact that we have bodies that we have to stay indoors at the moment because our bodies kill us, and our bodies are weapons against other that are dangerous to other people's bodies. So it's bodies that got us into this mess in the first place, and yet it's a return to a community and a sense of gathering, which is what is the light at the end of the tunnel and why we're so keen to kind of get over this crisis. But so let me say, for the sake of argument, that yes, theatre does translate into another medium, in the sense that, well, you can gather a whole lot of people in a room, and and it's fake, meaning everybody can be there and they're not really there. They're not really there, and they're not really together. So they pretend they are.
mm,
And we've all been to those kind of experiences. I mean, in the worst cases, like crowds when they are at their most hysterical, or crowds at, sort of vicious political rallies or something, there can be a false sense in which people are in a wrong community, in a sort of false mind, or people are there in a more benign sense at a theatre show, and you're just sort of absent. You don't, people aren't really in a critical mode. They're not really thinking. And that's a whole load of work, like Sean's work is in this, like this, where it's trying to wake people up and trying to bring a sort of
mm,
a real, an authentic sense. So I would say, obviously, theatre, when it works and at its best, draws makes people together, and it's sort of real. At the same time, sometimes it's not people are there only in body, not in spirit, you know. And sometimes if that works remotely, indirectly on a sort of online correlate, there might be a way you can create a connection there that is real. It's possible where you in the theater and it looks like you have a connection because you're both there in person, but you're not really connecting. So, you know,
So
that would
in
be
a
my devil's
way,
advocate.
the act of people who have tuned into a live stream theatrical experience in these kind of circumstances aren't just there because they bought the ticket months ago or their friends were going. They've made a really, really active choice to engage with that theatrical
And
moment.
that seems
Is
to be the reaction to, you spoke about Dear Island in your intro, in your news intro there. You know, the reaction there seems to be it's like a spiritual event for the country, you know, in a way,
mm,
certainly for the artistic community and overseas. Yeah, people are probably, of course, it reminds them of what they want and what they're missing. But yeah, people probably experienced the theatrical experience in a way that they had forgotten about, that they had sleepwalked away from, you know, a
mm.
little bit. If recently, anyway, that was just half of that is devil's advocate line of thinking.
Well, it's good to toss up the counter arguments. So both of you are no strangers to kind of incorporating mixed medium and like film and pre-record into theatrical experiences. I wonder, would you both mind talking a bit about your previous work that has kind of mixed mediums and how that would maybe differ in terms of rehearsal process and audience response? Shaun, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, so I've only started working with film over the last maybe two projects of mine. So the first one where I had some video design was a piece called Rapids, which was looking at experiences of disclosure within the HIV community. And then the second piece was called Making a Mark, which was on a Fringe last year, and that was Mark Smith's life story. That's an actor with Down syndrome. And me, the process was very like any process I've had with any other artist who's in the room, and everybody's always kind of bringing their different tools and their different skills, and you're trying to come up with an offer, I suppose, for the audience that is a mix of everyone's various gifts. And I think sometimes when film is in the theatre space, there's people who don't enjoy it massively. There's people who it really brings something new to the floor for. And for me, I work hard to try and understand what film is speaking to that the text or the live isn't. So I'll speak maybe just with reference to Rapids in particular. When we were making Rapids, and when I was researching and working with the community with regards to their particular testimonies, there was a lot of talk around TV and how TV has influenced the narrative around HIV and how particular, say, ad campaigns in the 80s still have a relevance today and they still bring up a lot of things for people. So the
Mm.
screens represented that conscious and the film design almost distracted a little bit from the present moment which we were trying to represent. So for me, when I'm working with film, I'm trying to understand all the time where is it harmonizing with the live moment and where is it contradicting or countering the live moment, and what is the relationship between the live experience and this film piece that we also have at the same time. But I haven't worked with live film record in the same way. I've worked with video and film design that plays alongside the live piece.
And have you ever had your live actors interacting and responding to that pre-record? And
Yeah,
how has that been
Rapids.
with, yeah, how has that played out in
Uh,
the rehearsal room?
Yeah, so I mean, in the same way, like I would work with a music composer. Like you develop the language on the floor. You figure out how to do it. And in Rapids, there was quite a lot of interaction with the screens. The screens helped us to tell the story, and the actors cued the screens, all that kind of stuff. So we just developed it on our feet, and it was my first time working with that level of technology actually, because I've been quite the work that I make is quite simple usually. When we started introducing screens, like the text became far more complicated. So that's the
Mm.
hardest part with screens, I find. I mean, or working with film, it's a offer when you're working. Like I work with Luca Cioccarelli quite a lot across the last few projects. I've worked with Killing Waters from Arcade Films as well, and that's always been very meaningful. Like those collaborations have always been brilliant, but it's difficult if you're operating within, say, the construct of a festival and you're working with 3 screens that are feeding each other and you have a limited tech resource. I mean, that's the challenge. That's what the challenge has been. Otherwise, the collaboration has been amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine that being difficult, but really worth the payoff when it all comes together.
Yeah.
And Bush, how about you? Your experiences of working in the kind of mixed mediums with recording and live.
Yeah, we probably first used video significantly in a project of ours called Hamnet. I should got your bio. The bio you read of our company was, I think, a bit outdated at the beginning. It doesn't really matter, but we've made a few projects since that, and one of those being the interpretation of dreams by Sigmund Freud, which was in Vienna last. Oh no, this beginning of this year. Yes, time is gone strange now. But that was probably the project we used video most centrally, and it always you always are wondering why a particular project leads you to think of why video might be useful. In the case of Hamnet, we just wanted to break up the pressure of the performance of an 11-year-old boy. The whole piece is a monologue for an 11-year-old boy, in the first instance performed by a young actor called Ollie West, who's the son
Mm.
of Annie Ryan and Michael West, who from Corn Exchange.
Ah,
Wonderful, talented, not so young guy now. Well, still a young man, but he's grown up since then. But in that instance, we didn't want to put the whole pressure of the performance on an 11-year-old. So we thought
mm,
strategies to mix that up and basically take the audience's eyes off him for 1 hour, just so he could then not feel that he could get a less pressured experience. And we thought about, well, what can we do? Should we have animals in the show? And that, they're useful at distracting people. And should we have we have audience participation, different strategies that would sort of ease the burden. And one of those was video. And well, that got us thinking about it, but we were pretty unsatisfied with an idea of there being just a sort of flat dimension, because if you're putting video in theater, it wants to be a character. Essentially, it wants to have a
mm,
dramatic dynamic quality. It doesn't want to be illustrative or scenographic. Just look, there's no rules. It can be, and it can be successfully. We were dissatisfied with that possibility, with it just being decorative, or at least flat. See if there was a way in which
mm,
there could be a sort of a real tension. And for anyone who saw the show, it was this mixed pre-recorded and live stream video, which was mixed into one screen. So the young lad, took very well to it, and it was he had to be very precise in his a bit like Roger Rabbit, where the actors sort of have to do the green screen acting and get their eye lines
mm,
right. So they make into the eyes of the cartoon, where Ollie had to sort of nuance his performance so it was connecting up to this pre-recorded father figure. And Aaron Murphy was the next performer who stepped into the role, took to it with just as much kind of skill and joy. So that was the thinking behind the video there. And in our more ambitious show, which was made in Vienna, I mean, we took that on because, as Shaun was saying, it can be so cumbersome, and you only want to really head into something so technical if you have the resources. And this theater we worked in Vienna, Berg Theater, is one of the biggest theaters in Europe. So it was a time
mm,
for us to go, okay, fuck it, we will pull out all the stops. And in that case, it was about interpreting an audience member's dream. So we invite an audience member on stage every night, a complete stranger. She tells her dream, whatever it is, and then our video department are quickly editing up a film
wow.
that she's then transposed into, and there's a live green screen studio, and they are live fed into a green screen film of their dream, and that plays out with all sorts of complicated technical twists and turns. But in that case, it was a way of achieving a pure dream. You know, in cinema seems to be
Mm,
the film structure and editing, and Freud talked about that as well. Sort of, it has a lot in common with the character way a dream is characterized, with sharp cuts and
mm.
location cuts, and you're suddenly in one place and then you're in somewhere radically different, and those kind of things. So those are some instances in which we've used video in our work.
How ambitious and exciting. Um, so I'm going to ask another question for you both. This kind of new form that we kind of argued, is it theatre, is it not, at the beginning, that has come about or been pushed into a new extreme due to COVID. Do you think it will exist only in the COVID moment, or do you think this has the potential to be a new medium with a longer life? I'll go to you, Shaun.
I think it will exist longer, 100%. I mean, definitely with artists that I'm working with and even organizations that I'm working with, I know people are developing practices that they're becoming rapidly very fond of already. So although for me, like I was saying earlier, it's a new thing, I think new things are exciting, and I think they tend to stick
Mm,
around. People like so I can imagine people wanting to continue creating work in this way, sharing work in this way, especially when you've got artists like that was one of the things that I said when we did Dear Ireland, like when that was streaming live, there was something like 4,000 people watching it in that live moment, and I was like, well, I've never played to that many people ever. So like you understand the appeal of these new things and the reach that it can bring you. So I think that's going to be very attractive to people even when we move out of this particular period.
mm, yeah. And what about you, Bush?
Yes, I think so. I mean, in my experience of theatre online as well has been all the theatres in Europe. So many of them have put their work online and been showing different performances each evening, and there's questions that need to be debated about, you know, copyright and sort of royalty fees that are due. And, you know, there is a right way to do everything. So you have to make sure you are in the right dialogue with the artists involved. You don't want to just throw up the stuff online and only the theatre benefits from it, and all the people don't,
Mm,
sort of designers and creators are forgotten along the way. But um, you know, I think it's a beautiful thing that suddenly people have more access to the story of theatre and what it is, you know, because really it's so geographically determined naturally, and that's its beauty as well, but also its limitation, um, in that we only know the theatre we can get to. And so suddenly
yeah.
over this month, we've all had a hardcore theatrical education. We suddenly have learned so much in
Mm,
4 weeks of seeing theatre we just can't get to because it's really expensive to fly to another country and book a ticket for a show or whatever. So it's that beautiful democratization of access to art is a plus side. But yeah, how it will recover and then fit back into the ecosystem. Like Shaun says, there will be these technologies. You know, people go, oh, and they'll now know about live streaming, and different people who are trying out the platform for the first time will find ways to fold that into their practice probably in an
hmm.
interesting way.
And what about the archival footage that's being released of productions that were filmed live with an audience, and people that are now able to see those, you know, like you were saying about being geographically specific, being able to see shows from all over the world. One thing that occurs to me with that is I know people used to always say about, say, Laurence Olivier's great Shakespeare roles or whatever, that they didn't quite translate on the screen all the time, and you know, kind of had to be there in the room to really fully get them. Do you think it's a drawback if some people are being introduced to great stage actors' performances on screen, or do you think it's just great that we're getting to see them?
But if there was no other way, then the only way is the drawback. You know, there's no, if you want to
Yeah.
have an opinion on how Laurence Olivier was like in Hamlet, there's only one way now, which is by a sort of video, you know, and so yes, you can still of what was lost seeing it this way, but it still gives you an opportunity to suddenly be part of a conversation that you otherwise wouldn't have. So I think opening the
Mm,
archives is a beautiful thing. Yeah, it does it require. There's no doubt though that there are some films that work better, some theatre shows that work better in their archival format. That's a freak. They might be the freak of natures. There's a few there maybe, but that's curious too. So there's a lot to meditate on and learn. So I
yeah,
don't know what
it's
Sean
interesting.
thinks about that.
Do you have any thoughts on archival performances?
Mm, like, yeah, I think it's great if you're in a position to share the work from your archives, because usually it means you're confident about that recording. If I've ever recorded anything in the past, it tends to be for documentation purposes of my own and for reference. Had work that I felt looked really cool and that I thought that audiences would want to see, and I'd have no problem with sharing it. It depends. I think it's all
Yeah,
about the contract that you have between the work and the audience, and how that kind of transcribes from moment to moment over time. Like it changes.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay. That is all that we have time for in this little section. So thank you so much to both of you for coming and having the chats with us. I hope you keep safe and well, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Amy. See you,
Thank
Sean.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
you.
So in our art in isolation feature, we have Irene Kelleher, a Cork-based writer and actor, and she's going to share what she's been keeping busy doing during lockdown. Take a look.
Hi, my name is Irene Kelleher and I am a writer and a performer from the county of Cork, of course. I studied drama and theatre studies in UCC, and I stayed and did a year's master's in performance practice also in UCC. And I trained in Shakespeare and Company, which is in Lenox in Massachusetts. I suppose I've been professionally acting the last 10 years, and I wrote my first play in 2015, so I'm still kind of on the beginner slope as a writer, getting there, starting off, still in my early days of it. My first play is Mary and Me, which it's a one-woman play, and it is inspired but not based on the Anne Lovett tragedy. And my second play is Gone Full Havisham, which is another one-woman show based on, or kind of inspired by, Dickens' most famous character and most brilliant character, I think, Miss Havisham, and it's a modern interpretation of her character. All the characters in my plays, and I suppose a big theme of my plays, are people who are a bit marginalised and isolated, and people who are cut off from society in one way or another, kind of alienated. So I think that seems to be a recurring theme. So when lockdown began, I was staying in a lighthouse, which is very unusual and very, very odd timing. How it came about was that I was meant to have quite a busy, April till the end of June was meant to be very busy with plays. Gone Full Havisham was on tour and I was performing in another play. I was lucky, very lucky, to get a writing retreat in a lighthouse in Gallyhead, because the next play I'm writing is about it's set in a lighthouse and it's about a lighthouse keeper. I couldn't stay in the lighthouse because it's still a working lighthouse, it's automated, but I stayed in the lightkeeper's cottage, which is right next to it. And it just happened that the day I was going is the day that lockdown essentially started. And my husband was meant to be working. Dennis was meant to be going to work every day, so he said, "Oh, he'll come down for a night or two." But actually then he was working from home, so he said, "You know what, I can come with you." So we actually had an amazing time and stayed there for longer than planned, because there was nothing to rush back to. So I've been lucky enough to have been very lucky to be in some great plays and some great films, and worked with immensely talented people who've made me look a lot better. I was very lucky to work and to know filmmaker Shaun Dunne, who I worked with on his feature film Beyond the Woods, and most recently in a short film that he wrote called Mother, Father, Monster, which was a short gothic period horror film, which is quite unusual. So when lockdown happened, a couple of weeks after, Shaun emailed me and said, look, I've written this script and it's about a guy and a girl who started dating before lockdown happened, and then lockdown happened, they were isolated in their homes, but they keep the connection through Skype calls and WhatsApp calls and that. So he wrote it with myself and asked would my husband play the other part, so myself and Dennis in mind. And so my husband works in IT, but is very, very much involved with amateur dramatics with Kilmeen Drama Group. So every now and then I rope him into projects. And I asked Dennis, and I thought, I don't know if he'll do it now, but he read the script and he thought it was great fun, so he said he'd be delighted. And we thought it was something that not only was a really fun script, but also to kind of create something during lockdown and in years to come, where we think, what did we do then? Did we really just eat and binge and watch Netflix, which is, happening what we do most days? I don't know, it's the same thing every day. I watched The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh yeah.
I checked in with work, and I had a few Zoom calls then, because obviously it's all Zoom calls these days.
Oh, the sooner this is over, the better.
We jumped at it. We were delighted to be asked, and it was quite challenging in that we had to film it ourselves, and I am not tech savvy, not camera savvy. Like, it took me about an hour to set this phone up on a tripod. So it was really good fun. So we couldn't be in the same room as each other when we were filming the pieces, because we had to use the audio from it, so we had to kind of guess when the other person had responded. So we did actually film the pieces. There's 10 little scenes in it, which you wouldn't think because it's only 5 minutes, but there's 10 little scenes, and we did each scene at the same time but in different rooms, so we couldn't really hear each other responding. So what we did after each take was go into the same room and watch both our reactions at the same time. We held our phones up to each other and watched and see did they sync. So that was fun. I think one of the reasons why the project worked was because I've worked with Shaun before, and I think when you work with someone a few times on a couple of projects, you build up a kind of a shorthand, and you know exactly how that person likes to work or what their strengths are, and I think that's the same with both of us, and it kind of came together a lot quicker as such. And obviously, because I've been married to my gorgeous husband for 4 years, there's quite a lot of chemistry there. So obviously that helped matters as well. Oh, I know, me too. Where do you want to meet?
Well, I don't mind your place, mine.
Sure, look, I'll call you tomorrow and we can fix the time and place and all that.
I know this might sound a bit cheesy, but I really do think we're made for each other. Like, we're the perfect fit.
Oh God, look, I feel the exact same. So to keep myself sane in this period of isolation, I have been writing. I've been writing the Lighthouse play, but more than that, I have taken time out. And I really think it's very hard on artists, because at the moment there's this huge, I think there's a big pressure on us to create work, or we have to keep busy, or you have to keep out there, people will forget who you are. But I think what's more important is that we also just kind of take time yeah, definitely do a bit of writing, recording, whatever it is you need to do to keep sane, and it's definitely healthy to keep busy as well. But I just think it's really important to just take a break as well and breathe and allow yourself to take the space away from working. And if the coronavirus has taught us anything, I think it's just, well, what is important in life, and you know, just being around family, be it obviously the way it is now on WhatsApp video calls, or just connecting with friends and just taking that time for yourself where you don't have to constantly feel the need to create work. I'm going to appreciate so much more spending time with family and friends. I WhatsApp video call my mum every single day, and the one thing I can't wait to do after all this is give her a hug. So while I am, you know, happy to get back to work when the time is right, I'm not going to put myself under crazy pressure to keep writing or keep myself out there constantly. I think what also is important is to take that time out and a break, and I think that's what is needed as well at the moment. And I don't mean to sound in any way preachy, because I think everyone needs to do what you need to do yourself, but I just think that there's a lot of pressure to create work on artists at the moment, and I think, well, no, everybody needs to take a break and take some downtime, because when things are busy again, we may regret that we didn't savour it more. I am on social media for my sins. I'm on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. I am not on TikTok because I'm not that cool and I don't want to have to learn a new thing. So yeah, if anyone is interested, they can follow me on any or all of those mediums. I'm always delighted to make new contacts. And I think that's it. I think I've talked enough.
Cool. So our next guest on Stage Door Live is Geoff Gould. Geoff is the founder and artistic director of the Fit Up Theatre Festival, whose aim is to bring affordable, professional theatre to rural communities. Fit Up has been running since 2009, and their first festival of the year, the Blackwater Valley Fit Up, ran from January 22nd to February 23rd this year. Welcome to the show, Geoff. Hello. I'm just quickly, before we jump into this, going to say to Kevin, the producer who's listening, that I've got double audio looping back. If he wanted to fix it, I'll see if he can do that. Hopefully that'll happen in a second. How are you, Geoff?
Good, but I'm a bit used to computers, Amy, so it's probably me. I go near them and all, they seem to blow up. You know, I've done nothing down this side.
I'm also terrible at computers. I don't know why I'm hosting a webcast, but let's just jump in anyway. So, could you tell us a bit about Fit Up, how it started and its kind of ethos and mission?
Yeah, well, I suppose it started because there was a major recession in 07, 08, 09, and theatre directors, actors had no work. And we had toured a show in Newfoundland to Grossmorn, and it was a tiny village in the middle of nowhere. It had nearly 10 weeks of theatre shows. And I just thought, why can't this work? So I was really lucky. I have a great friend, John Sheehy and Dan Wycherley, and Dennis Foley, and the three of them took off and decided they'd do 3 shows with Michael Harding. So we toured them in the back of an old Renault 19. And we did 3 one-week shows, and it just seemed to go from there. Cork County Council were huge supporters of the idea, and they gave us a small bit of funding to start us off, but now they're our biggest funders.
Yeah. Hi. And how has Fit Up been affected by COVID?
That's a good question, actually. At the minute, it hasn't been. We haven't cancelled it. No, every festival is cancelled, but we haven't cancelled. So we're still hopeful. Last week of July, first 3 weeks of August, our normal time, but we can very easily push that out a bit further if necessary. So it hasn't affected it at all yet.
And would you be able to go ahead with social distancing in place?
In some, yes, because there could be one or two big basketball courts, but the rest of them are very small. Some of the venues have a maximum audience size of maybe 60, 70 people. They're 10 metres by 5 metres audience space. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's tough. Are you likely to follow in the footsteps of NEP's online theatre movements?
Well, I don't consider them theatre, really. Like theatre for me is about a shared experience in a venue or a site specific or site responsive anything. But online, I mean, you can see the difficulty you and I are having here, having a conversation with double loops and upside loops and it's a nightmare. But the biggest problem of the lot, there's no shared experience, and the audience don't become the fourth ingredient. So we certainly would never be looking at any virtual theatre down in West Park. Couldn't see us doing that. I don't think our audience would have much of an interest, really. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question was rural communities that don't have as much accessibility to the kind of theatre the volume of theatre that we get in Dublin. Sorry, this is really distracting because I can hear myself.
I know, I can hear my voice as well,
yeah. I'll recollect my thought then. So, do you think this is a positive or a negative for those communities that want to see professional level theatre but don't get as much exposure as we do in capital cities? Do you think it's a positive move for them to have this increased accessibility online?
I'm not really sure. Are you asking, is it good for our audiences in West Cork to have an increased accessibility online at this time?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Or do you think it's
really.
relevant?
No, I don't. I don't see any. I think it's a different medium. It's like, do you want to go see a band in Lebanon tonight, and you're going to have a pint of watching them and they're amazing, or do you want to watch them on YouTube? Difference. I know where I want to be. I want to be in the pub watching. So I see no plus in the kind of virtual work that the Abbey is doing, except obviously to keep people interested.
Yeah.
But it might be an interesting question. How many of those pieces will be on the stage in the National Theatre over the next 12 months? That would be, because then we get a chance to see it live.
Yeah.
So is it just an exercise then, or do we really want to see Shaun Dunne live and all these pieces live? Brilliant. But no.
What you said about keeping the interest alive there, do you think there's any concern over maybe a new generation of potential theatre makers that might lose out in this period if theatre is halted for too long? Do you think there will be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so. I think people who love theatre continue to want to do it. And I think just spend the time, restoration comedy came in after theaters closed for 10 years. So 10 months possibly won't make a great deal of difference. 10 weeks won't make a great deal of difference.
My audio is completely gone. I didn't hear any of that.
Sorry, yeah, okay. So you asked me,
Sorry.
can you hear me now, Amy?
Yeah, I'm just trying to text saying it's all breaking up.
Yeah.
I think
It's the joy
maybe
of
if
rural
Kevin
internet.
pause this and try and resolve the technical difficulties. Kevin, can you pause the live stream? Hi, we're back live. Thank you all for bearing with us while we dealt with those technical difficulties. So I'm still here with Geoff Gould, and Geoff's going to tell us a bit about plans for Fit Up once everything resumes back to normal and the future of Fit Up Festival.
Thanks, Amy. I suppose our plans would be to use this time to work on a number of new scripts. It's often the big problem in programming a festival that you spend so much time programming and organising, you don't get much of a chance to develop scripts. So we have people like Micheál Lovett has a new script, and Shane Mockinvard, Jean Flores Sweeney. A lot of young writers out there looking to put scripts on, and we'd be really working on those over 6 months in the hope that even maybe in October, November, that we would have maybe a 3-week fit up then with some of the shows we've already programmed, like let's say verbally programmed, like Sarah Jane Scott now and Fionn Foley, people like that. So we still don't know whether they will happen or not, and our aim will be to try and make them happen in whatever format.
I'm afraid
So
the
we
audio
would.
completely cut out for me again there. I didn't hear anything you said after developing scripts a while ago.
I can hear you
So,
fine now, but I don't know whether you can hear me.
and I still can't hear anything.
And is it just the mic, I wonder, on this bloody thing? You hear me now, Amy? No?
hello. Hopefully that is the end of our technical difficulties. So I'm going to ask one more question to Geoff. Do you have any words of advice or comfort for anyone out there missing theatre during lockdown?
Well, as I said earlier, but I don't know if you heard it, like the restoration period was after an 11-year lockdown. My history isn't great now, but Cromwell locked them down for a long time anyway. So 11 years is a long time, and this too will pass, as what I would say. But what I would say is don't spend your whole time watching bloody Netflix. Go and write some plays and get them ready for when we do come out of it. And,
Yeah.
complaining that you've lost the time and you did nothing. Because it's very easy, look at Netflix all day long or YouTube or whatever. So sit down and start writing. That's what I would say.
Maybe someone can
Thanks,
write a
Amy.
nice fast about technical difficulties during live streamed.
Yeah, I'll just send you a
Okay,
pigeon off here with a note on it.
yeah. Thanks so much for joining us. Apologies for the problems we had, and stay safe and well.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Take care. Cheers.
Bye.
Good luck.
Okay, so fingers crossed, all will be well now. Um, although the teleprompter is not showing. Okay, cool. So our final guest tonight is Aaron Monaghan. Aaron is the artistic director of Live in Dread Theatre Company and a freelance actor who has performed at the Abbey and works often with Druid Theatre. He was most recently in Tom Murphy's The Cherry Orchard with Druid, the first major production of Murphy's work since his death in 2018. This production made history as Druid became the first Irish theatre company to live stream a show to cinemas from the Black Box Theatre in Galway. Aaron is also in the cast of 2 of the 3 J.M. Singh shows streaming on Druid's Vimeo. He plays Christy Mahon in Playboy of the Western World and Bartley in Riders to the Sea. Hello, Aaron. Are you there?
I am, Amy. How are you?
Hello, welcome. Have you been witnessing any of our terrible technical difficulties this evening?
I have. Yeah, God love it. Yeah, it's what's expected now, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully you're going to be our lucky charm now for the last section, and it's all going to go really, really smoothly. So how are you keeping?
Good. Yeah, good. Yeah, positive. I think I've been trying to stay positive, and I still feel. I think a bit of a last week was, I think, the moment for me that a lot of people had early on, where I lost a little bit of hope. And I had to kind of retreat a little bit, but I still feel very optimistic about things, and I'm definitely still in love with theatre. Can't wait to get back into a rehearsal room, but more so, can't wait to get back into an auditorium and sit and watch stuff. I can't wait.
Yeah, me too. So the Cherry Orchard, how was that? That show got cut short, didn't it, because of COVID?
Yeah, so. Yeah, just bizarrely, kind of a freak of nature thing was that we had scheduled a run in Galway, in the Black Box in Galway, and we finished the run of that, and that was that's where the live broadcast was. The extra week was due to happen, I think. It was the first week of April, so we were like maybe 3 or 4 weeks into the lockdown. So unfortunately, that had to be cancelled or postponed. And we were on a break for that moment anyway. So the good thing is that it was recorded and it was live streamed. That that it happened earlier on in the run. So I think we were quite lucky in that regard.
Yeah. And what was it like to make history with the first live stream of an Irish company?
It was nerve-wracking, if I'm really honest. I mean, that when you ask the question like that, I don't think Druid are so cool that they don't think of that they don't think of it in those terms. I think they live up to the challenge of kind of being the first. It had to be Druid to be the first Irish company to do that. It just had to be, because they do these epically big, wonderful shows like the Murphy cycle or the Sing cycle or the Shakespeare cycles, and then they just get on with it. They don't make a song and dance about it. So it's weird. I haven't really thought about it as making history, and I don't think we did. I think we knew we were the first company to be doing it, and that there was a lot of pressure on our shoulders. No, we were really just doing a play, and I think the best part of it was that it was that we were doing a Tom Murphy play with pretty much all Druid ensemble, and the official ensemble and the unofficial ensemble as well. And when it came around to doing the live screening, it just happened to be a thing that that there were cameras in the room, and that we were suddenly playing to thousands of people around the world. The first time it dawned on me was that when they recorded over 2 nights, and the first thing that happened was right before we went on. There was an announcement, and then they had to wait for 2 minutes because the president was making a statement. He was doing not a live announcement, but there was a pre-recorded announcement, and it was only then that I realized, wow, the Michael D. Higgins is speaking in cinemas here, to mark this occasion. That's when it became an occasion for
Wow.
me, really, in between the house announcement, this big long pause, and the lights coming up, and the first
God,
line
that's a
coming
scary moment to have that hit you, isn't it?
in.
When
Yeah,
you're
it was. Yeah, I think so. I think. Well, for me, I'll only speak for myself, but I think other people felt the same way. That, like, we were just doing a play, because a play is a hard enough thing to do anyway, especially
yeah.
a play that is by a writer who's so revered and that we respect. And like, we wouldn't be the Druid Company or the Druid Ensemble without that writer. Everything that we've
Mm.
done in the last 10 years certainly came out of working on his work. And we were just getting on and doing a play, and then suddenly it was a different thing. I don't know if we carried it around all that much, but I know that after the fact, the next day, I think we were all just exhausted, because for that entire week there was just this adrenaline, kind of, call it fear, call it nerves, call it pressure, but we weren't talking about it, or we weren't certainly admitting to it. And it didn't really hit me. Like, I know I had the first line in the play, so I'm thinking about it now and kind of going, okay, I was the first actor to speak in an Irish company that was live broadcast to the world. I'm really glad I didn't
Wow.
think about that, because that
Yeah.
pressure was not helpful. But I
So was
realised the pressure there in retrospect. Beg your pardon, sorry.
No, okay. Was it ever really talked about in rehearsal rooms, in the rehearsal room leading up to the show? Did the director kind of, like, how early on did you know from the beginning that it was going to be live streamed? Was it ever talked about? And did that ever impact on any of the choices, either as an actor or as, like, I'd assume no, but did it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. No, I think for me, no is the answer to all those questions. We all signed up well in advance, because it's a Tom Murphy play with Druid, and
Yeah.
we all just wanted to be in it, I think. And there's something about the big Druid shows that they kind of spoil you. They kind of spoil you for other plays. They're such kind of immense experiences to be involved in, that when you go into, sounds terribly patronizing what I'm about to say, but when you go into a rehearsal room after that, it's hard to live up to the challenge of it. So it spoils you, because you want the big challenges. And so I think that's why a lot of us keep on going back to Druid as well, because you really are up against it. The pressure is immense, and they take on these big things. So that was part of it. It was after, I think, that most of us had signed on, that this live stream thing became a part of it. And I think we all just rehearsed the play, and we kind of went, at some point we're going to have to think about the fact that there's going to be cameras in the room, but we're not doing film here. We're doing a play that is going to be live broadcast to the world. And the people who are coming into that process have much more expertise in that process than we do, and they were very clear about, like, I don't remember a huge amount of interaction. In fact, they were nearly invisible. They were an amazing kind of group of people. The outside broadcast company, incredibly professional, and bizarrely for them, they kept on saying, this is a small job for us. And to us, like, we were looking at the outside broadcast unit, the huge amount of crew and cameras and stuff, and they were saying, yeah, this is small. But
Wow.
they were nearly kind of invisible throughout the process, and we didn't modify what we were doing. In fact, we were kind of going, we're making a play, and that play, that piece of theatre, is what people are going to see in the cinemas. They're not going to see a film. So you can't modify your acting. You can't modify your performance. You certainly can't modify the play. And it's like any theatre experience, and I would say it's the same. Like, when the moment I discovered I loved acting for the camera was the moment I discovered that I was completely powerless. That and there's a great freedom in that. So I can't control my performance, because it's at the mercy of an editor, and it's at the mercy of a director. But when you realize that there's a great freedom in that, to express things, to I suppose you kind of say, well, I'm going to leave it all in front of the camera. I'm going to give the editor, I'm going to give the director as many options as possible. And you trust that they will do their job, and hopefully they will. And so I think for me, certainly, I kind of felt like I'm going to do my job acting in this play as Tom Murphy and Gary Hines requires me to do, and as my fellow actors and designers and stage technicians require me to do. And I trust that the stuff that's going to go on screen is going to be left to the professional talent of better-minded people than myself. And it was a wonderful freedom in that. So as great as it was an odd experience, certainly doing it over those 2 nights live, but it was just like doing a play. And I think it's the way it should be, I think.
So it didn't really affect your kind of experience as an actor in the actual moment of playing, that it was being filmed. It didn't really affect that sensation at all.
No, I wouldn't say it didn't affect it at all, because there's it's the same as for me, and it might be different for different actors. When I know my mother is in, I hate knowing when people are in.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I hear their voice in my head, I hear their name repeatedly in my head, and I see their face, and it's a distraction. And your job for me as an actor is to kind of just go to a place where there's no distractions, where you're just believing in the world of the play, that the world that the other actors are creating for you, and that the set and the lights, and the sound, the costumes are creating for you. So I'd be lying to say that it didn't affect me. But the temptation is to not modify your performance, I think. And I think for the most part, we were successful in that. And the challenge is to not let it affect you, to not let the immense pressure affect you as well, and to try and forget that they're there. But you never can forget that they're there, because there's big cameras in your face, in the same way that you can never forget that the audience are there. And you must never forget that the audience are there, because that's why you're there. So the most part to answer that question is no, it didn't really affect, but yeah, of course it did. It adds to the pressure. It adds to that adrenaline. It felt like an opening night by 2 or something like that.
Yeah. And so you've already talked about it being significant and special that it was a Tom Murphy. When I looked up whether it was a Tom Murphy, I know there's a distinction between an adaptation or a translation usually, but I saw that it was very specifically neither of those. It described itself as a version.
Yeah.
So what's the distinction there?
Well, I think there's lots of different translations, which can get caught up in the interpretation of the language line by line and word by word, and even by virtue of the fact, I think that you're translating from one language into the other. And we read I certainly did read lots of different translations, but I also read a lot about the translating of Chekhov plays and how it can never quite fit, because there's idiomatic things, and there's vocal gestures and sounds that words make that are only going to be understandable to a Russian audience, and possibly a Russian audience around that time as well, because words die and new ones are created, and words meanings evolve over time. I think Tom's version of it was a very faithful adaptation of it, but it was very, very Tom. It felt like a Tom Murphy play in its. I always kind of feel that he had figured out what Chekhov's intentions and sounds were, and he made decisions. He was like, I see what Chekhov is doing there, but here's what I want to do. And that might be in terms of entire speech, or it might be in terms of an action or a tiny syllable or a word. But I think that what Tom did in his version was that he distilled lots of speeches down to sounds, sometimes words and sometimes sounds, and sometimes gestures, and he made it a typical Tom Murphy play in that. I always say with Murphy, it's certainly about the rhythm, it's about the musicality, it's very, very much so about the sound of things. And when you get underneath the sound of it, it becomes a Tom Murphy play. So we referred back to Chekhov not for meaning. We referred back to different versions of Chekhov. Sometimes for meaning, just kind of go, because he's so, Chekhov is so Chekhovian, you're kind of going, what does he mean by that? So you're looking for a context, but at the end of the day, we refer to Tom's play at the end of the day. And it was certainly his version, not his translation, yeah. If that makes any sense.
That must have been great. It did. It made loads of sense. The treasures you must have found when the greatness of Tom Murphy and the greatness of Anton Chekhov collide must have been a very exciting rehearsal process and performance.
Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about your experience as an actor in the live streaming theatre format. Do you watch much live streamed theatre yourself, or had you pre-COVID, and has that changed now?
I've probably watched the a bit more live streaming now, because it's more available, because I miss it. And I think we go through phases of these things, without saying that, any trend that happens will probably go through the same phase. When live streaming first happened, I was probably its biggest critic without ever having gone to one, because I was like, this isn't theatre, it's not the live experience. And now I'm kind of going, well, if you can't get a ticket to see a sold out show in the West End or in the National Theatre, or you can't afford the plane ticket, then what's wrong with that? What's wrong with seeing the next best thing, even if it isn't the same thing? And I don't know if it is the same thing. Like, I don't really care to answer that question. It's a version of it. And the other thing I would say is that what I find really interesting about it is that it's made theatre more accessible throughout the world. And if you forget about throughout the world, it certainly made it more accessible throughout the country. So people will go into, I think a lot of people will go into a cinema quicker than they'll go into a theatre. A certain type of person will go into it. So if they're going to see a theatre, that's a good thing. If that means that more people will eventually walk into a theatre, I can only think that's a good thing. So I'm kind of all for it now. I've kind of been converted from being one of its biggest critics before I really understood what it was or its potential, to kind of being a big fan of it now. There's been so much debate and kind of amongst my peers and colleagues about what's happening with people streaming work online in the last couple of weeks, and I'd be the last one to I have so many opinions on it, but every week of this crisis brings about a new perspective, and your opinion changes on it based on the new evidence. I think it was kind of wonderful at the start of this to see people so so generously share their work and enthusiastically just share their work, just to kind of go, just to keep people entertained and to keep the spirit of being included together. And then I kind of felt real sense of dismay when the government kind of announced their plans, because I was like, you're capitalizing on a really good intentioned thing, and you're also cheapening the experience, because we're suddenly been asked, artists who I think I'll talk about myself as an actor first. I don't necessarily feel this, but I know my wife Claire would feel this. You can't even be an actor anymore, but now you have to be a writer, you have to be a director, you have to be a producer, you have to be an arts council administrator in some ways to fill out. There's such pressure on ourselves, and then to be asked to suddenly turn around this experience that we've been doing for thousands of years, and in a very short space of time turn it into a new medium, and to figure that out, and also without the help of professional people like stage technicians, like designers, and also you're starting to it's raised so many moral questions for me, and I think it's such a well-intentioned and good thing, but I think we need to figure it out as well, that are we cutting people who are well trained in this? People have been doing this for nearly a generation now, I think, this online digital stuff. So I think it's going to be around for a while, and I hope it is, but I hope it's monitored. I hope it's given the proper structure. I hope it's given the proper infrastructure and support, and I hope it's not if people are getting stuff out of it, I hope it continues. But I hope it doesn't cut people out or cheapen the experience for
Yeah.
everybody. I really do.
Did you kind of mean when you were talking about people who've been doing this already, kind of taking oversaturating the market of people who kind of were developing this as their unique venture?
No, I wouldn't say oversaturating the market. Like I think I suppose I'm saying what I'm saying is conversations I'm having with other artists where they suddenly feel the pressure that if they're not doing this, they're going to be irrelevant. And I really
Yeah.
don't feel that's the case. And I don't think that we should have to do such a U-turn. And I feel if people want to do it, oh, absolutely go ahead and do it, because I think it's a brilliant thing. And I can see a new form of, I don't really care if they call it theatre or not. I don't really care. Whatever you want to call it. If it continues, it's a new thing that's going to happen, and I think it's going to be a brilliant thing. I just hope it's given its proper funding. I hope it's given its proper support. I hope it's given its
Yeah.
proper structure. And I think it could become something. Like I was listening to Shaun talking about earlier on, and I was kind of saying, I think someone like Shaun has the energy and enthusiasm and the imagination to take that somewhere now and do some really, really brilliant things with that. And people like him should do that. But I really hope that he's supported in that. I hope he has all the right supports to do that. And I kind of feel we're in danger. We're in danger of kind of not being given that. That's what I saw when the government announced those grants. I think I just stuck my head in my hands and thought it's a lot of pressure on artists. So hopefully they'll be given those support.
Yeah. Oh, well, this has been a very lovely chat after I was very frazzled by the technical difficulties. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming on and talking to us about all of that stuff, live streaming, Cherry Orchard, etc. I hope you stay safe and well,
You too.
and have a good night.
You too.
So that's our show for tonight. Thank you to all of our guests, and thank you to everyone who watched the first month of Stage Door live. So if you watch our website, there'll be a new blog post soon from our associate producer Janice and researcher Chris. They'll be continuing to add the discussion of theatre on screen. We look forward to continuing to bringing you all the latest theatre and arts news, and can't wait to see you all in person very soon. In the meantime, whether you're watching Theatre for Screen, making sourdough starters, or just enjoying your new 5-kilometre radius, we hope that you are staying safe and well. And to leave you all with something very nice, here is actor Maeve Fitzgerald reading Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. Good night and have a good week.
Hi there, I hope you're keeping very well in these unusual times. I'm going to read a poem by the late Mary Oliver. I came across this poem last year and it's stuck with me ever since. It's one of those poems that could mean a million different things to a million different people, as is the case with all great poems, but I think it's very apt for the times that we're in at the moment. I think the poem is a really beautiful reminder to go easy on ourselves, to go easy on each other, to try and practice compassion and mindfulness with ourselves and with each other, which we all need at the moment. And also I think a thing that people are struggling with right now is identity. And I think that this poem reminds us that we have a place in the world. We don't have to work for it. Just by virtue of our existence, we're enough. So I hope you enjoy it. It's called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees. the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Stay safe, everybody, and hope to see everybody soon. Bye.